robotics team hopes to make an annual occasion. So our theme for this year, in case you haven't figured that out yet, is technology in space. So we'll be hearing all about countless career and learning opportunities in science and technology, particularly in the field of space exploration. We'll start off with a few speakers, follow with a Q&A session, and then end with the Robotics Expo afterwards in the cafeteria, where local FIRST robotics teams will be showing off their robots from past years. So hope you all have a great time. So to start us off, here is the wonderful Ms. McBee, who's been a huge supporter of the Central Robotics team.
Well, thank you, and we welcome all of the students and teachers to this program today. I'm Mary McBee, I'm principal here at Central High School, and I have been the principal here for 22 years. I'm starting my 23rd year. So it was really an exciting time when we started the Mini-Box program. As you know, they've had a great first couple of years, and it's a very, very exciting and interesting group of young people who are very dedicated to the work that they do. And I've been proud to be present at the competition at the U, and I hope to get to it this year again. I'm not sure where it's going to be. But as a non-science person, I enjoy knowing that there are people whose minds are as intricate as yours are. I'm more of a humanities person, so you'll find me reading more than experimenting with a lot of things. But on behalf of Central High School, I want to welcome you. We do have the distinction next year celebrating our 150th anniversary. This school started in September of 1866. We've had 5 different sites. This is the last site. This school was built here in 1912. It's been renovated, so you don't see the old historic building that's underneath it. But a lot of our kids said it was a kind of a backwards move to take the old historic building and turn it into something that looks like this, okay? So maybe in the future, with the facilities planning management issue, we'll try to update it and make it look more like a school than something the kids call it other, right? I won't tell you what they call it. But once again, I'm really happy for us to host this event for you. I'm looking forward to hearing the astronaut speak. It's the first time I've ever heard an astronaut. I don't know about you. So it's exciting. I grew up as a teenager in the 60s when we first sent a man to the moon. So we've done a lot of things, more exciting things since then. So I'm happy. I hope you're happy to be here, and I hope you learned something very valuable for today. And I hope you continue your interest in robotics issues, okay? And stay focused and continue to improve your minds, and hopefully you can create some interesting inventions for the future, and hopefully create a better world and a better earth for all of our students. So thank you, and welcome to Central High School.
Who's been extremely supportive of the team and has been an integral part of this particular event is Mr. Tim Jones from the Department of International Scholarships at the University of Minnesota.
My main contribution to FIRST Robotics at Central was 17 years ago, contributed to the birth of my daughter, Mariel. But yeah, I'm just going to explain a little bit about why we're here, why Colonel Robert Cabana is here. The Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, which was started by the Gemini 7 astronauts in 1981? 84. Was started to award scholarships to encourage young people in this country to keep pushing back the frontiers of science and engineering. And so every year, a number of colleges, I think there are 31 now, with historic associations to the astronaut corps, award 1 or 2 astronaut scholarships every year. That's up to $10,000 toward your undergraduate education. You have to go to one of the universities that's a member, the University of Minnesota is, because a gentleman named Deke Slayton. Anybody heard of Deke Slayton? All right, we've got one for Deke Slayton. Got a BS in aeronautical engineering from the University of Minnesota, and was one of the Mercury 7 astronauts. We have two representatives here from the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, Nicole Roos and Tammy Knowles, and they came up along with Colonel Cabana to award, recognize our two astronaut scholars at the University of Minnesota this year, Sammy Shaker and Rachel Sultan. 4 years ago, Sammy and Rachel were probably a lot like you. They were high schoolers. They were thinking about colleges. They were thinking about what they wanted to study. They were interested in chemistry and math and computer science and a whole host of STEM areas. Both of them decided to come to the University of Minnesota, which is a great place to go to study anything, but particularly to study the sciences and engineering. I happen to work in the honors program at the University of Minnesota. I work with students who are applying for scholarships, like the astronaut scholarship. But the honors program was created 8 years ago with the idea of providing young people with a lot of ambition, with a lot of preparation, with a lot of different interests, to really engage those interests in a huge university. And so we provide a lot of advising and mentoring and connecting students with the opportunities that are there on that research university campus. Sammy and Rachel have both flourished there. I'd like you to think about maybe flourishing there yourself. Right here at the University of Minnesota. Feel free to apply, feel free to join the honors program, feel free, no matter what you do, to take advantage of those opportunities that are out there. And I guess I'm handing this back to Lydia. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. We're extremely thankful for everything that you has done, not just for this event, but for the team. Our head mentor is a student at the University of Minnesota, and it's just really nice for the robotics team to have such a strong university so close by. It helped us get a lot of different resources that we need. So, I'd now like to welcome Colonel Robert Cabana to the stage. The Colonel was born in Minneapolis and graduated from Washburn High School, so it's local. A former naval flight officer and naval aviator in the U.S. Marines, Colonel Cabana has logged over 1,000 hours in space across 4 shuttle flights, including the Discovery, Columbia, and Endeavour shuttles. He has been awarded with countless honors and was inducted into the Astronaut Hall of Fame in 2008. He is now the director of NASA's John F. Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Without further ado, Colonel Robert Cabana.
I hate being tied to a podium. How many of you are participating in FIRST Robotics for the first time? Oh, quite a bunch. And then I assume the rest of you have done it before. Did you enjoy it? Yeah. Yes? It's fun, isn't it? Using all that skills that you have with engineering and teamwork to put together a team to be able to compete. And it's fun, a challenge, a problem-solving event. You know, I never dreamed I was going to be an astronaut, believe me. I was just a small boy growing up here in Minneapolis, and I had just a passion for flying. And I think you guys have kind of found your passion, or you wouldn't be part of these robotics teams. In fact, we sponsor 2 robotics teams at the Kennedy Space Center with our engineers and mentor them. And I love going to the competitions. I love getting down in the pit and talking to the kids from all over the country when they come to Orlando for the regional competition and seeing the enthusiasm that they have. But I love to see the different solutions that they come up with for trying to solve that year's problem. And I really enjoy that they're part of a team. NASA's a team, and we need everybody. If you went to the Kennedy Space Center and you walked up to anybody there and asked them, what do they do? I would hope that they say, hey, I help launch rockets to space. I don't care what your job is, whether it's in finance, legal, public affairs, or you're one of our engineers. Everybody is part of a team, and for a team to be successful, everybody has to know what their role is and make it work. And that's what FIRST Robotics does. It helps you build a team, but it helps you also use those skills to find your passion. My passion was flying. That's all I ever wanted to do since I was a little kid. I never dreamed I could be an astronaut, but one thing kind of led to another. So there's something I want to leave you with. All right. When I graduated from the United States Naval Academy, I wanted to be a naval aviator. I wanted to take off and land on aircraft carriers and fly jets. But I chose a commission in the United States Marine Corps. Marines are naval aviators, also Marine pilots. And I got down to Pensacola, Florida, and I flunked my eye test. And boy, was I disappointed. But I became a naval flight officer. They said I could do that. And so I was a naval flight officer for 3 years, and every year I passed my eye test for 2020. I finally convinced them to let me go back to flight school and be a pilot. And I earned those Navy gold wings and was a naval aviator. And after a while, I said, I'd really like to be a test pilot and use all the math and engineering I had with skills along with my flying abilities. So I applied for Navy test pilot school. Didn't get selected on the first try, but 6 months later, got picked up for test pilot school. And then NASA was taking applications for the space shuttle program. They took the first group of astronauts in 1978. They took some more in 1980. But in 1984, I'd been a test pilot for a couple of years, and I actually qualified. And I remember watching, on black and white TV, those guys going to space when I was a kid, and thought, wow, this is amazing. I'd really like to do something like that, but I never thought I could, all right? And there's a moral to that. So anyway, I applied for the astronaut program, and I made it through all the hoops, got down to Houston, had all the interviews, and I said, this is it. I just can't wait for that call. This is what I want to do. And the call came, and they said, sorry, Bob, you didn't make it. Oh, man, was I disappointed again. And they said, we're going to take some more next year. We'd like you to try again. So I went through the whole process again, reapplied in 1985, and was fortunate enough to get selected. And I got to fly 4 awesome space shuttle missions and be a part of that NASA team even today. So I didn't get into pilot training on the first try, test pilot school on the first try, or the astronaut program on the first try. But they were all things that I wanted to do, and I didn't give up. Don't ever give up. Set a goal for yourself and work toward it. And it's amazing what can happen through persistence and working hard and doing your best. The other part about that is find your passion, all right? And don't be afraid to try different things. You never know, what's going to interest you or where your passion lies. But if you find what you're passionate about, a couple things are going to happen. First off, you're going to do really well at it because you're passionate about it. And work becomes fun. And, that makes life a whole lot more enjoyable. So you guys are young enough, you've kind of zeroed in on things that you like this first robotics competition. It's really cool. And use that, build on that. But don't be afraid to try other things too. And find that passion. And then take it with you. And don't ever give up. Keep working. Right now, I'm the director of the Kennedy Space Center. And what an awesome job. I get to lead the finest group of engineers and technicians anywhere in the world. We are doing amazing things. People ask, well, what's going on? Hey, how many of you guys saw the movie The Martian? What'd you think? Was it good? Did you like it? Yep, it was awesome, all right? And the book's even better. You gotta read the book anywhere. And if you read the book before you saw the movie, that's even better still because your brain fills in all the details that aren't in the movie. But, that's what we're doing at NASA right now. We are preparing to send humans to Mars in the 2030s. We are putting the infrastructure in place right now at the Kennedy Space Center to make that happen. We quit flying the shuttle in July of 2011, all right? And since then, we've been in a period of transition. And we're taking pad 39B at the Cape, the northernmost pad, and converting it to a multi-user pad. That's where the big rocket's going to launch from, that one day is going to take us to Mars. And that rocket is called the Space Launch System, with the Orion crew vehicle on it. Orion is capable of taking a crew of 4 out of low Earth orbit and going beyond planet Earth and coming back again. It can keep a crew of 4 alive and healthy for 21 days. Well, obviously, we can't get to Mars in 21 days. We're going to need a habitability module also. But we flew the first test flight on that capsule last December 5th, on a Delta IV Heavy. Went up 3,600 miles from Earth. That's as far as that rocket can take it. That's why we need a bigger rocket. And it re-entered at 85% of lunar re-entry velocity, checked out the thermal protection system on it, all the systems flawless. Well, the big rocket, it's a lot like the space shuttle in some ways. We're using existing technology. We have 18 space shuttle engines in storage at the Stennis Space Center in Mississippi. That's the most fuel-efficient liquid rocket engine in existence. Instead of 3 like the shuttle had, we're going to take 4 of those engines and put it on the core stage of the Space Launch System. And then the core stage is the same diameter as the shuttle's external tank, 27 feet, using liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen. We're going to strap solid rocket motors on it, just like the shuttle, but instead of 4 segments high, they're going to be 5 segments for even more thrust. And that rocket is eventually going to be able to take us beyond planet Earth into lunar orbits, lunar distant retrograde orbits, and eventually one day to Mars. And we're putting all that infrastructure in space today. When I walked out and seen the Martian, I said, wow, I was really pumped. I said, I want to make that happen for real, and we are making that happen. In addition to that, we're enabling a commercial capability to get towards the space. How many heard of the company SpaceX, right? With the Falcon 9 rocket. They're flying cargo to the International Space Station right now with the Dragon capsule on the Falcon 9. Well, they're going to have a crew version of that Dragon. And the goal is to develop a U.S. capability to fly crews to the International Space Station in 2017. And SpaceX is competing against Boeing for the privilege of doing that. And both of them are going to have that capability. SpaceX with the Falcon 9 and the Crew Dragon, and Boeing with the CST-100 spacecraft, now called the Starliner, on an Atlas V rocket. And we're making that happen down at KSC too. So we have an awesome future in space, but we need more young folks coming aboard, all right, to replace our engineers as they get old and retire. They have an interest in science, technology, math, engineering. But we need those other skills also that are part of your teams right now. So I encourage all of you, find your passion, have a dream, and don't give up. And always do your best, all right? Work hard, and it's amazing what can happen. Like I said, I just wanted to fly airplanes, and one thing kind of led to another, and I've been blessed. But I give a lot of credit to my upbringing right here in Minnesota. I learned a lot. We had a family farm up in northern Minnesota, and I got to digress a little bit. Flying in space, it's a lot like mowing alfalfa on an 80-acre field. If you're going around in circles all day, you're just going a lot faster. But, being on that farm and working there during the summers, I went to school in Minneapolis, and then I spent all my summers on a family farm working. That'll make you want to get away. And it's hard work, but I learned a lot on that farm. I learned a lot about self-sufficiency, about being able to work with my hands and do things. But most of all, I learned that, I am capable of an awful lot. Don't sell yourself short, all right? Work hard, do your best, and I look forward to talking with you more. I'll take questions when we go look over in the cafeteria and see all the robots and stuff. Please feel free to come up and ask me any question you want about flying in space, being an astronaut, or what's going on with our space program. Now, I'm really proud of all you guys. I'm proud that you are interested in what you're interested in, and that you're making a commitment to work together as a team, to take the challenge, and to do good things. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That was a very inspiring speech. I'd now like to welcome another great figure. I'd now like to welcome Mr. Mark Lawrence of the Edina FRC Robotics team, the Green Machine. Mr. Lawrence has been with FIRST Robotics for many years and is now the director of the Minnesota region of FIRST. Last year, Mark was honored with the prestigious Woody Flowers Award to recognize his great contributions as a mentor in leading, inspiring, and empowering students in robotics. The Woody Flowers Award is the highest award given to mentors at FIRST Robotics, and we're very thankful to have him here with us today, along with Mr. Cabana.
I don't like podiums either. I'm actually going to cheat and show some slides because I want to give you a little different view of FIRST. I spend a lot of time talking to sponsors and, what does FIRST mean to students? What do they get out of it? Some of those kind of things. So, just a second, we'll get this up. So I'll use some slides. But what I want you to get out of this is that there's sort of another avenue. How many kids are not on FIRST team here? Okay, so we've got a few. I'll tell you a little bit about the program, and then we'll go from there. give me one. All right. So first of all, FIRST is an acronym, and it stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. And as those of you that know the program, it was founded by Dean Kamen, who's probably a classic entrepreneur from the U.S. sense of things. He's had a number of startup companies. He owns a number of patents. But he recognized very early on, back in the 80s, I'm like Cabana. I grew up watching the space shuttle. I grew up thinking, I didn't really want to be an astronaut because I got dizzy on state fair rides and stuff. But I got very interested in science and technology, and that led me into undergraduate degrees, graduate school, geophysics, and then I ended up, my next career was actually computer networking. So, it's sort of like follow your passion. Well, computer networking didn't exist when I was in college. So it's something that you have to watch as a student. Your life is going to change as you go through this. So one of the things that Dean recognized is that we really weren't getting kids interested in science and technology. So he said, well, let's start this competition and see if we can do that. Because it's sort of true in the United States, you get what you celebrate. And that's really what this was all about. It was, let's use the sports model, because the sports model seems to be winning with students' minds. Everybody likes football and basketball and all that kind of stuff. And, let's make it entertaining. So that's why we have the big venues, that's why we have, the competitive
See if I can get
format
Marty to
of
tip
the program, and it really helps to interest the students. Anyways, so as you look around and you say, what's FIRST really about? Well, one of the things we call is the varsity sport of the mind. And the reason we call that is because it does follow the sports model. But in fact, it also is a competitive program. As you know, we do those 2-day competitions, a lot of plays, and then we have a playoff, and you end up with a champion. So it really makes a difference. All right. So given the fact that it's that, so you have this competition, you have a very short period of time to build a robot. You have to work as a team. So let's just advance. Let's go on. Okay, so let's just look at what this looks like. For those of you who haven't seen the FIRST competition, I would highly recommend it. The University of Minnesota is one of our main sponsors in town. We have 2 events there. And in fact, we're there this year, the second week in April, both in Mariucci and Williamsville. So I would highly encourage you to come and see it. This actually is video from the championship in St. Louis last April, which the Minnevots went to, and the Dyke went to. You'll see on the left-hand side of the screen some red and white Zubas and red T-shirts, and they're putting their totes onto the robot. That's Duluth East, who ended up second in this competition. So you want to come up and the video?
Help was needed.
Okay, so you can see that last year's game was very industrial. You know, that's something that you would see probably at Amazon or something very, very similar to that. Robots running around trying to collect boxes and get them onto shipping conveyors and that kind of stuff. So it really turns out that last year's game was something that has a lot of industrial application. But that's not really the important part about it. Why don't you go to the next slide? As I mentioned before, you learn a lot about being a team. You know, that's probably one of the biggest things that we do. You know, and the other thing is this time constraint. So let's go to the next slide. So this is Woody Flowers, who the Woody Flowers Award is named after. This is one of his favorite quotes because, in fact, building one of these robots really is a microcosm of what it's like in industry. You never have enough money to do what you'd like to do, which is the team budget. You know, you'd love to go to 2 competitions, but you really don't have the money to do that. You'd love to build a second robot, you really don't have the money to do that. You'd like to get some part machine, you don't really have the money to do that. And on top of it, you don't have a lot of the skill set needed to carry out some of the designs you come up with, and on and on and on. So in fact, it really is this little microcosm of a real engineering experience. And I'm sure Colonel Cabana can tell you all sorts of stories about that. I know Dave Lavery, who's on the game design committee, also works at NASA, has what he calls first projects, where you have 6 weeks to build a prototype, which is really what you're doing when you have 6 weeks to build our robots. Next slide. So what are we trying to do? So this is probably a side of first you don't really see, but in fact, this is kind of why we do the program. You know, when I go and talk to companies to sponsor it, I'm talking about these kind of things. We're building STEM awareness. We're building the intent to go into STEM programs. Innovation and entrepreneurship. I mean, how many times have you looked at somebody else's robot and said, why didn't you think of that? You know, it's incredible. You know, given the same rule book, same animation for building the robot, the different designs that people come up with astound me every single year. And it's usually the simplest ones that are the most innovative and solve the problem best. So when you're building this year's robot for Stronghold, it'll be interesting to see what the challenge is, but it'll also be interesting to see what the designs are that solve the solutions. So that's always fun. And then something that we've thrown on in education a lot is 21st century skills. You know, these are things that you need, that you get out of the first program just by osmosis. You know, you're communicating on Chief Delphi to people, which is for those of you who don't know, it's a forum, it's a question and answer forum. I often tell people that, you know, if you get out during build season, if you get on that forum at 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning, at 2:01, somebody will answer your question or posted a comment about what you're talking about or giving you a solution. You know, those kind of things they're real world activities. And then the bottom 2, gracious professionalism. You know, it's something that we need a lot more of. We need a lot more people trying to help other people solve problems and helping them achieve and do their best. You know, it's not something that is done in normal sports models. You know, we're going to beat them and we're going to beat them 55-0 or something. You know, well, that's not really the ethos of what goes on at first. And the other is cooperation. And as you guys know, by evidence of the different teams that are here, we're always helping each other out. You know, even though we know that we're going to be in competition with them, you know, I always have to laugh with Nightcrawlers, a couple of Nightcrawler people here. You know, we're really good friends, but we always end up competing against each other. And that happened just, 2 weeks ago at MRI. So it's something that goes on all the time. And it also happens in industry. I can remember when I was doing networking, you know, in one sense, HP, you know, the company that makes PCs and all that kind of stuff, they were building networking equipment and selling it against the company I worked for, which was Cisco. Yet we worked very cooperatively with these guys to put in infrastructures in all these large corporations around the world. So it carries over into the business model. So what are you doing? You know, when you're building these robots, you know, here's a list of things that are all integral to actually making your team run. You know, some teams do more than others, but the bottom line is you're touching all these different aspects of what companies are looking for in business. You know, these are the things that you take out of the program that you may not even know that you take out of the program. You know, I always look at these challenges, you know, not so much last year with their, you know, there was some physics involved last year, lifting the totes and how heavy are the totes and you have enough torque on the motor and those kind of things. But if you go back to the game the previous year, aerial assist, you know, you're really, you know, you're worried about the trajectory of that big ball. And is it going to get to the goal? And how's it going to get to the goal? And what angle does it have to come off the robot at to get to the goal and how many feet out from the goal? There's a lot of physics involved in doing that. Because that ball was heavy, and it was 8 pounds. So, you know, those kind of things are very integral to it. And, you know, back to what I said before, you never have enough money. Well, everybody's got a business team. You know, and the goal of the business team is actually to fulfill the need to buy all the stuff that you want to make your robot successful. So, final one, mentorship and teamwork. You know, as the seniors are working on the robot, their role in life is to teach the freshmen and sophomores all the skills they need to carry on with the team and to make them successful in the future. So as your team gets older, you know, you bring along institutional knowledge, but somebody has to carry that knowledge. And it isn't always the mentors that do that, because the students are the ones that are actually building the robot. So they're the ones that have to nurture the younger members on the team and bring them along. And of course, teamwork. You know, I think one of the hardest things that I find in working with our team captains is having them hold their peers accountable for getting work done. Whether it's the computing team, the CAD team, whoever it is, it's one of the hardest things you have to do is look one of your friends in the eye and say, you know what, we need that. And you're responsible for getting it to us. And make sure you get it to us. So if you don't do that, you don't have teamwork. So that's something that happens every single day during this event. Finally, do we know that it works? So let's see. I don't think any of the teams that are here are part of the Brandeis study. But you know, as I talk to companies, they're interested in, can you tell me that this program really works? And I go, you know, anecdotally, I can sit here and talk to you all day, but that's not what causes companies to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars sponsoring teams. What they want to know, does it really work, and do we have numbers that make it show that it really works? And these are some of the numbers that we found. So by being on a first team, you really are changing your life trajectory. You know, we've seen this happen time and time again. And, you know, by this time, you know, you're probably interested in STEM, but how interested are you in it? Are you interested enough to go to undergraduate? Are you interested enough to think, oh, I think I'm going to go to graduate school and maybe get an advanced degree? And am I going to go work for a Medtronic or a 3M or a Boston Scientific as an occupation? You know, those are the kinds of things that they want to know. And, you know, these are the kind of numbers that we look at and go, yeah, we're doing it. And they're rewriting this playbook right now as we speak with another long-term study. So, next one. And then, of course, women and minorities, you know, underserved people. We're trying to boost those numbers, particularly here in Minnesota. As most of you know, and I mentioned this at MRI, we're going to have over 200 teams this year. So we've got the geographic coverage in the state. Now we've got to get all the right kids, because we know once we get kids into this program, we can do great things with it. And we can make them leaders. We can make sure they get to college. Next slide. Because, you know, you look at this slide, there's $21 million. All these schools, when you apply to school, have a checkbox. And there's 180 of them. Were you on a first team? If you were on a first team, what did you do? How important was it to you? They want to know that. And if you do, you know, $21 million amongst first students, you have a pretty good chance of getting a scholarship. University, Minnesota, right in the middle, has got 2 full rides. $40,000 scholarships to go to the U. So those are very competitive. And, you know, it's always fun to see who wins those scholarships every year. So, you know, it's something you can look at, pursue, and let your dreams take you where you want to go. And then, having a first background, the money's going to follow. Thanks. Finally, I love the top one. Walt Harrison, he's the chairman of FIRST, along with John Abley, who's co-chairing again this year. But it's the only sport where everybody go pro. You know, so and that's really true. It's very, you know, the sports people get a lot of press. You know, we've often thought in Minnesota we should have a sign-up day. You know, what colleges are the first students going to? Because that's what they do with the sports teams. You know, they have a sign-up day. What team are you committing, or what college are you committing to? And I think we need to do that because you know, it's equally important what our students can do with their college educations. So that's it. Thanks.
Let's give another huge round of applause for both Mr. Martinor. Now I'm going to metaphorically hand over the mic to our Metabots head coach, John Lavick, who's going to lead a Q&A session with Colonel Cabana and Mr. Watts.
Well, once again, I too would like to thank everybody for coming, and think that this has been a wonderful opportunity here. Colonel Cabana and Mark Lawrence speak. And I would now like to open it up for questions. If you could turn on the house lights, contrary to what I said before. We have, I think it's quiet enough. So why don't you raise your hand? If I can see you, I will acknowledge. Yes.
I stood next to the Saturn V rocket at Johnson and wondering what this one that sent it to Mars is going to be in comparison.
Okay, the Saturn V rocket at Johnson Space Center. Saturn V was lots kerosene rocket. It had a 33-foot diameter on its first stage. So this one, it's actually going to end up having more thrust than a Saturn V. It starts out, it's a little bit shorter, but when we get the new upper stage for it, it's going to be a little taller.
Where did you go to college and what did you major? Yeah.
I went to the United States Naval Academy, and I started out as a physics major and I switched to mathematics. But I had a lot of engineering, mechanical engineering, and then test pilot school was like a master's degree in aero. So I love engineering. I love math. You know, it's just, you can use it. It's the basis of everything. If you're good at math, you can apply that to almost anything.
Person's a blue jacket.
So when you were talking, it made it sound like you were still like going into space. So are you still like, do you still?
Yeah, my last space flight was December of 1998, the first space station assembly mission. So now I'm the director of the Kennedy Space Center, so I go to a lot of meetings and I don't have to fly in space anymore. But I'd gladly give up going to meetings to fly in space. But, I don't think to fly. I fly my own airplane though. We got a 1978 Super Decathlon. It's fully aerobatic with an inverted fuel and oil system. It's a hoot.
Right behind it.
What was your favorite experience in space?
Well, I think just looking down on the Earth from a couple hundred miles high, I could spend the entire day just looking out the window, watching the Earth go by. But time on Earth is very expensive, and you're really busy. You have very little free time. But whenever I did have a little free time, I just looking out the window, watching the Earth go by. The Earth is just an amazing. It's a beautiful place. I got some great pictures of Minnesota from my flights. It's neat to look down on home from a couple hundred miles high.
Back. Louder.
What's your favorite planet?
My favorite planet, Earth. It's awesome. It has an atmosphere. It's got mountains and streams. It keeps us alive. It has an atmosphere to filter all that harmful radiation. You don't have to wear a spacesuit to live on it. I think it's really cool. But, you know, I don't know. They're all pretty neat. It'd be kind of neat to go to Mars, wouldn't it? Make the Martian a reality.
Simon.
How do you select candidates to go to Mars?
Good question. You know, I won't be on the team that does that, but when I was chief of the astronaut office, I did assign crews to fly in space on the space shuttle. And what I did when I picked my crews, first off, how do you get to be an astronaut? All right, you have to have a technical degree, math, engineering, or one of the physical sciences, and you have to have 3 years of experience in your field. And you can substitute a master's degree for 1 year and a PhD for 2 years. So if you have a PhD, you qualify. But all the astronauts have, as mission specialists, they have at least a master's. Most of them have their PhD, as well as significant experience in their field. Now, when I was in the astronaut office, and even today, about half the astronauts are active duty military. We have two types here, pilot astronauts and mission specialists. For the pilot astronauts, you have to have a technical degree, plus 1,000 hours of pilot and command time in high-performance jet aircraft. And test pilot experience is highly desirable. They've never picked an astronaut pilot yet that wasn't a graduate of one of the military test pilot schools. So to become an astronaut, technical degree, test pilot experience, or pilot astronaut, a PhD, and significant experience in your field if you're not. And I'll tell you, I've been on a number of astronaut selection boards, and it's really hard. The last astronaut class, we picked 8. And I wasn't on that board, but they had 6,800 applicants, and they picked 8. We narrowed it down, 3,500 applicants down to about 120 that we interviewed, and then we picked about 20. And we could have picked any of those 120 and had a great class. But we look for folks that, are passionate about what they do, are good communicators, and are good with their hands. And they're things more than just their specialty. So once you get trained to be an astronaut and get through astronaut candidate training, you're eligible for assignment to a flight. And when I chose cruise, you can't pick, even in the astronaut corps, some folks are a little better than others, right? But you can't put all your best people on every flight, and you can't fly all your experienced people. You got to give the folks that don't have experience also. So I looked for a good mix when I picked the crews. Some new guys, some old guys, some experience, some not. Some with a specialty for what that mission was, because the missions vary. Some were science missions. My third flight, we had a laboratory in the payload bay. We did science around the clock, 24 hours a day. Half the crew worked 12 hours, while the other half was off, taking care of the orbiters, sleeping and eating and stuff. And we had 83 experiments from around the world, and much like the International Space Station today. So we had some scientists that were, had specific skills within the areas that we were doing research in. But we also had a balance on the crew. So we look, if I were picking a crew to go to Mars, I'd want somebody with a medical background. I'd want somebody with a science background on the geology of Mars when I got there. I'd want somebody with an engineering background to be able to handle the systems on the vehicle. I want leadership skills. I want a team that was able to work together well. And I think you find that in your first robotics teams, don't you? And you're working together for a year, right? And I bet things don't go perfect all the time. I bet now and then you kind of get in arguments over stuff, right? And you kind of maybe aren't really nice all the time. And that's no different with any team. You work through the struggles, you figure out how to communicate, but the real cool part is you got diversity on your team, and with the diverse team, you can get to the best answer for the solution. So kind of a long answer to this.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could talk about robotics in space.
Oh, robotics. Look at, they're the precursors for humans. You got robots on Mars right now. Look at little Spirit and Opportunity, how long they lasted. They were supposed to last a few months, and they lasted for years. And one of them's still going up there. Curiosity, what an amazing rover. We're going to send another one in 2020 to Mars. Robots are, that's how we learn before we send humans here. We have robots on the space shuttle and the space station. I was a robotic arm operator. That's all an arm is. It's a robot. It allows you to do things out in space without being there, but you got a plan for how you do that. You have to have special grapple fixtures. There's special tools that you need, video, computers, and so on in order to get the feedback that you need to be able to operate the arm to accomplish the task that you're going to do. All the things that you learn on first robotics, you can apply those same things to robots in space. There's a way over here that can really push.
How long are your missions in space?
Some are short, some are long. Some are a few days. The longest one was 16 days. My last mission was 13, 14 days. So, but my first mission was only 5 days. Yeah, so it varied. On the International Space Station now, crews are up there for 6 months at a time. Scott Kelly is up there for a year. He's going to be the American with the longest space flight. He already is. He's set the record for Americans in space. The Russians have that record right now, but Scott will end up tying it by being up there for a year. what's really neat about Scott being up there, Scott has an identical twin, Mark. And Mark is on the ground. And Mark agreed to take part in the experiments, the medical blood takes, and everything else that Scott's doing in space. So we'll have truth data. We'll have an astronaut in space for a year, and we'll be able to compare it to his identical twin, who's truth data on the ground for a year. So that's kind of neat. But we've got a lot to learn before we go to Mars and spend an extended period of time in space. But Scott's helping us gather that data. And it's not that folks haven't flown in space for a year before. The Russians have done it. Sergei Krikalev, and there's another Russian before Sergei. But the experiments that we have now are better defined. We gather data better, so we learn more.
Yes. Can you explain to us some of the advantage of space science?
What is the advantage of space science?
That's what you guys are going to say.
Well, now space science is a big thing, all right? Because if you take space science, now you're talking about astrophysics and everything else and exploring beyond our home planet. Or you can just talk about doing science in space aboard the International Space Station. And a lot of materials behave differently in a microgravity environment than they do on Earth. Well, one example is protein crystal growth. In space, you can grow protein crystals that are much larger with a much greater degree of accuracy than you can on Earth. So by growing these protein crystals in space, we bring them back to Earth, and then they define their structure very carefully, and you can engineer medicines that counteract things on Earth by being able to grow protein crystals in space and see how they are actually defined. Materials properties are different in space. We can probably manufacture new materials up there, but we learn a lot with the experiments in space that can then be applied back on Earth. The biggest thing that I see at the International Space Station, though, in addition to the science that it's doing, is an engineering test bed for proving the systems that we need to extend mission beyond planet Earth, figuring out how to make things work. Things break in space, man. You can design it on Earth and think it's going to work, and you get it to space, and it doesn't behave the way you thought it would on Earth. And we can iron out those bugs and figure out how to make these environmental control systems work a lot better for the International Space Station, so that we can actually do a 1.5-year, 2-year mission to Mars. Because that's what it takes right now with current propulsion technology. It's like 6 to 8 months to get to Mars, another 6 to 8 months on Mars for the planets to align for another 6 to 8 month trip home. So we need really smart folks to build good systems. But maybe one of you guys can develop some new propulsion technology to help us get there quicker.
What was it like for you living in the zero-G environment?
Oh man, zero G is cool. It's awesome. It's so much fun. I wish I could take you guys up there. I wish I could take a 4 or 5-year-olds up there. I wish I could have taken one of my grandsons up there. They would just have an absolute ball. It's so easy, and the human body is amazing. It adapts so quickly to the microgravity environment. Some of the changes in what we're learning about in space. You know, we have a skeletal structure to support our muscle anatomies here on Earth. When you get in space, your brain says, I don't need this skeleton anymore, and it starts shedding calcium. And it's very similar to osteoporosis. So if we can stop that in astronauts, we can stop it here on Earth. What we've found is, and astronauts on the International Space Station have mandatory exercise 2 hours a day, every day. And it's aerobic and strength exercise and running on a treadmill. They've got a cycle ergometer, bicycle. They've got a resistive exercise device that feels like lifting weights. And they've got a treadmill where you run on it with bungees. And what we found is to stem that calcium loss, you need the impact from running on a treadmill, but you also need the strength training, the resistive exercise. So that's why they exercise 2 hours a day. We maintain our balance here on Earth through our inner ear. You know, the cochlea in there, the little semicircular canals with all those cilia, those little hairs, they sense the movement of the fluid. They know where gravity is. When you get in space, your brain shuts that off. And you also maintain your balance with your visual reference with the horizon. When you come back from space, your ear hasn't started working yet. If you close your eyes, you don't know where up or down is. You could fall over, so you're kind of careful at first. And you look at the horizon and make sure that you stay straight and level and maintain your balance, right? But every time I flew in space, I adapted quicker to 0G, and I adapted quicker to 1G coming home. Your brain remembers. It's amazing the way your brain is capable. is no age limit, either young or old, to be an astronaut, as long as you are physically and qualified, meet all the qualifications. So the oldest person I know who flew in space was John Glenn, and he was 77 when he flew on a space shuttle in 1998. So I'm holding out hope. John Glenn was a Marine fighter pilot, test pilot, and he's a really nice guy. I know him. And I figure he flew in space at 77, so I got a few years left. I'm not done yet. I'm ready. Throw me in. And as far as all that radiation for going to Mars, it's okay. I'm willing to take it because I'm old and it doesn't matter. We're all going to die of cancer one day anyway. So I'm ready to go anytime.
We have time for one or two. You have a question?
My question was kind of about the ethics of going to Mars. It sounds like you're saying they're not going to go to Mars until they can get back. All this top science talk about.
We're not, NASA will not send humans to Mars on a one-way trip.
Right, so that's all just science fiction, internet science, right?
Well, I mean, there are some commercial companies that talk about doing this, but I'll be honest, I don't think they really understand what it takes to keep humans alive in that vacuum of space, and especially a harsh environment on Mars and the radiation and everything else. So, you know, NASA, we're looking at the late 2030s to be able to send humans to Mars and return them safely, and that's our plan.
Did you ever play ping pong in zero gravity?
Did I ever play what?
Ping pong.
Ping pong. I did not play ping pong, but I played with my food, I played with water, I did all kinds of stupid astronaut tricks. You know how in ice skaters you see them spinning, you know, and they stick out their arms and they slow down and they tuck into a ball really fast. So I got down on a mid-dip, and I got perfectly like this, laid out across the mid-dip, and I had one of my crewmates take my feet, and I was spinning really fast, and then I'd stick out my arms and legs like that, and I'd go real slow, and then I'd pull them back in again and spin really fast.
All right, so being out there in space, and with the fact that you're probably going to handle that, I think we can say that, what kind of like side effects do you have?
Well, okay, I don't have any side effects from that I know of. I get an annual physical every year. NASA follows us even after we've flown in space to keep track, and we're a database for everybody else too, to see if there are any effects. I will admit, I got cataracts in my left eye. It could be from radiation in space. You know, they're not severe, but a lot of it could be from flying T-38s at 40,000 feet, where you're up above most of the atmosphere, and you get a lot of radiation too. And you get a lot of hours flying jets. So, you know, I don't have a lot of calcium loss. But it's the longer duration missions that really have the impact on the human body, not so much the shorter duration missions.
Last question. Sam.
You mentioned earlier that when you're in space, you probably just kind of shed clothes, and you do the exercise routines and such to kind of counteract that. You also have special diets, anything as kind of dietary-wise to
Yeah. So, you know, astronauts take a vitamin supplement, but the food that we eat, it's a balanced meal. You know, in fact, you know, you pick your food like 6 months before you fly in space. I don't know what I want to eat tomorrow, let alone 6 months from now. But you have this food tasting, you taste everything, you make up your meals, and you say, this is what I want, and then the dietitians look at it and say, no, this is not balanced, you need more of this and that, and then they make it right. And then all your food goes in the locker, and you just pick out what you want to eat anyway. So, you know, the food, some of it's freeze-dried, requires rehydration. Most of it's thermally stabilized. We use meals ready to eat, just like the military. There's no refrigerator. There's no convection oven or microwave. There's an oven, a convection oven, but there's no microwave because they use too much power. There's no freezer, and astronauts don't eat space dots or freeze-dried ice cream. Although on one of my missions, that science mission, we had a freezer in the laboratory to bring home medical samples from the flight, and it was really a shame to launch that freezer empty, so we filled it with Dove bars, and then we eat Dove bars and replace it with and you know, but it's you know, for breakfast I could have like instant oatmeal with a Sara Lee Danish and coffee, and for lunch I might take a tortilla and slap a thermally stabilized chicken breast on it after I heated it up, and eat that with a tapioca pudding or something for dessert. And, you know, dinner might be spaghetti and meatballs and one of those MREs or something, but it's a balanced diet and the food's really good. All right, I think that's our
cafeteria is up there.
appreciation, we're going to present Mr. Lawrence and Carol Cabana with some gifts.
All right.
Just so you know, they got Minibot t-shirts, so they'll be permanent members of our team.
I don't know what Team Pink and the folks in KSC are going to say about this. If I show up in a minute.
We don't care. Oh, yes, so we are now going to be adjourning to the cafeteria right across the hall. We have a few robots from prior years and various other robots set up out there. The teams are welcome to go out there and represent their robots, answer questions about them. Colonel Cabana and Mark Lawrence will be looking at them, and they may have questions to ask about them. So, and anybody else who wants to is very welcome to go out there. We can talk about FIRST robotics. You can get this Colonel Cabana to answer a few additional questions, although I think he's on a pretty tight schedule, so he may not have a lot of time left. But anyway, so feel free to go across the hall to the cafeteria. Thank you very much.